All right, so we're going to look at the Axis leaders in this short video. If you haven't yet, we did the Allied leaders in another one. From our perspective here in the United States, these are the bad guys in World War II, and they don't get any worse than Adolf Hitler. Remember back in the build up to World War II, we talked about his early life, so you know that Adolf Hitler had served during World War I and was extremely disappointed what he felt like were unfair burdens placed on Germany as part of the Versailles Treaty. We saw in the beginning, as he rose to power as leader of the Nazi Party, that he rolled back a lot of those regulations that had been put on Germany at the end of World War I, and it makes him a really popular leader. The Nazis today, I mean, obviously there's a stigma around the word Nazi, but in the 1920s and 30s, it was a political party. The National Socialist Workers' Party, there in Germany. He rises to power because he's a very charismatic speaker. He could really command an audience. The Nazis are going to adopt the symbol you see on the young man behind Hitler's armband there, the swastika, for their symbol. And so usually it was a black swastika on a white background with red on the armband or the flag behind it. That becomes the symbol of the Nazi Party. Hitler is the man who's responsible for starting World War II. He invades Poland, which draws France and Great Britain into the war. Eventually, he will make a mistake after Pearl Harbor. He actually, once the United States declares war on Japan, he declares war on the United States. And so it allows the United States to pick which theater they want to go to first, or gives them the option of going and fighting in Europe with Great Britain. And so they will do that at the same time that they go looking to fight the Japanese in the Pacific. Hitler, like I said, was a great speaker, but he becomes convinced in the war that he's a great military commander, and there's really no evidence of that. When he takes direct control of the military, things don't go very well. 16 different times during his reign as Chancellor and then Führer of Germany, his own people, his soldiers or people will try to assassinate him. Hitler eventually dies by his own hand during the Battle of Berlin. He doesn't want to be captured by the Soviets, and so he takes poison and then shoots himself. Hitler is most infamous for the Holocaust, right? The killing of 6 million Jews and hundreds of thousands of other people of undesirable groups. Hitler had this idea that the Germans represented the Aryan or master race. These people were ideal Nordics, and that those people were supposed to rule. And so anybody that didn't fit into that particular group was one that he felt like really didn't have the right to live. As I said before, we're going to cover Hitler in a lot more detail in a lot of the other things we would look at, but that's just a little introduction. Hitler is seen here in a card with the fascist leader of Italy, Benito Mussolini. We saw Mussolini when we looked at the birth of fascism, right? This is the man who's given credit for creating that type of government. He does that in Italy. Benito Mussolini was a popular leader in the beginning, but it doesn't take very long for his popularity to start to fade. He really had control of Italy because he had control of the military. Famous story is told that the only thing Mussolini did that everybody liked him for was that the trains in Italy always ran on time. And he enforced this in a very simple way. Basically what he did, if a train showed up late, he had the conductor shot in front of all the passengers, and lo and behold, train started to run on time. Like I said, Mussolini wasn't extremely popular. He has to be reinstalled in power at least twice by Hitler and Nazi troops during World War II, and eventually his own people will drag him out of the presidential palace. They kill Mussolini and his mistress. They gut them, drag them behind a car, and then hang them up at a gas station. And there's a famous picture of Mussolini hanging at the gas station. The story gets told that in the 3 or 4 days he was there, that half of Italy walked by to spit on his rotting corpse. So not exactly a really popular guy. Like I said, his big contribution was just the concept of fascism, this ultra-nationalist type of movement that's going to get World War II started. He had thought in the beginning, Hitler was an admirer of Mussolini's. Actually wrote him and asked him for an autographed picture, which sounds weird, but happened. And he kind of thought he was going to be in charge in the very beginning. Of course, that doesn't end up being the case. He imagined building a brand new Roman Empire around Italy. But like I said, once Italy overthrows him, they will eventually join the Allies, making them the only country I know of to be on both sides of both world wars. But like I said, these two were actually pretty good friends. And you look at something like this, and a little bit of a disturbing picture of these two sharing a laugh in the back of a car. The last guy that we're going to take a look at is Hideki Tojo. Hideki Tojo is the leader of Japan during most of World War II. Towards the end of the war, as the war starts to go poorly for the Japanese, he'll be replaced. But we need to understand something about the setup of the Japanese government as we take a look at this. Japan had and still has an emperor. But in World War II, the emperor was the total leader and was believed to be divine. The guy that was emperor of Japan during World War II had actually taken the job early in the 1900s when he was actually a teenager, had come to power. It was one that gets passed down through family. But as a divine figure, he didn't have a whole lot to do with the day-to-day running of the empire. So Hideki Tojo becomes kind of the prime minister of Japan. He tells the people what the emperor says, and he fills the emperor in on how the people are feeling and what's going on and things like the war effort. He did have a military background. He was known for his ruthlessness. He was nicknamed the Razor. In World War II, he is kind of in that samurai tradition we talked about when we talked about the rape of Nanking, and he will make the war or make war in much the same way, with the same level of ruthlessness. This is the man that orders the attack on Pearl Harbor that will bring the United States into the war. As the war comes to a close, like I said, he's removed from power, but he's still alive as the war ends. He knows he's going to be pursued as a war criminal. And so he actually goes to a doctor friend, asks him to mark where his heart is because he wants to shoot himself in the heart before he's captured. Well, apparently the guy was either not a good doctor or not a good colorer, because when he shoots him, where he tells him to, he doesn't kill himself. He ends up being captured by the American military, and what behavior that I'm sure has contributed to the deficit we find ourselves in. We nurse him back to health before we hang him as a war criminal. The story gets told, one of my favorite stories of World War II is that there was a prison dentist, what a depressing job, who didn't want Tojo to forget why he was in there, and supposedly while he was doing a dental procedure, he carved the date of Pearl Harbor into the enamel of his teeth so that he would see it anytime he looked in the mirror. But like I said, this guy will be the leader of Japan during World War II.